Welcome to the Baseball Insiders, the only baseball podcast that knows exactly where Blake Snell is going, and we're going to reveal it at the 31-34 mark of this show. So stick around all the way to the end. Nope, same as it ever was, but we are live to talk about the latest updates in the free agency chase, as well as answer some of your questions and why exactly everyone started talking about Houston on Friday and San Francisco yesterday, plus the reality of Mike Clevenger's Ask, Tommy Pham, and anything you guys want to know about. I am Adam Weinrib, live here with FanSided's MLB Insider. As always, Robert Murray. Robert, welcome to the Thunderdome. 10 days before opening day, I expect a flurry of signings in the next 3.5 minutes starting now. Go.
I'll tell you, if one of them ended up dropping just right then and there, wouldn't that have been something? But my goodness me, it is March 18th, and we still have Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, Mike Clevenger, Tommy Pham, Michael Lorenzen, all unsigned. It is absolutely crazy to me. I don't necessarily get it at all, but I can, considering asks and how teams are just crying poor, and it's just it's a weird offseason, weird mix. But let's break it all down, because we do have some new information that did get reported, and I can also provide some insight on some of those reports. But first, Adam Weinrib, how are you?
I am good. Like the comments are saying, my school did miss out on an NCAA tournament berth on a buzzer beater yesterday, but that doesn't tell the full story. They actually blew a 6-point lead with 27 seconds left. So now we move on to March Madness. I'm still angry. Did I replay the last 27 seconds in my head as I was trying to go to sleep last night and right after I woke up this morning? You're damn right I did. But let's talk baseball instead, because we actually did have some movement over the weekend, if not in reality, if not in terms of finalized contracts, at least in the rumor mill. Before we get rolling into all that, do want to welcome everyone and make sure to note that if you are not yet on DraftKings, they're offering a fantastic sign-up bonus for new users. New customers can place a $5 first bet on any sport to instantly claim $150 in bonus bets when you, the Baseball Insiders listener or viewer, sign up with the code Baseball Insider. The best part is you will receive your rewards even if your first bet loses. Using our code Baseball Insider not only gets you these bonuses, but it also directly supports the podcast. The podcast also gives you an easy way to remember that code. It's Baseball Insider because Robert is an insider and I am just a man. If you've been considering signing up for DraftKings, make sure to use the code Baseball Insider to maximize your first bets. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus, physically present, legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Make sure to check that episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. Plus, if you are not in the Discord, now is a great time to join. This offseason may be wrapping up. Maybe not. We actually have no idea if this offseason will ever wrap up. But once it does, it's time to talk live ball. It is time to talk trade deadline. And we're going to be doing all that stuff, making you the most informed fans in baseball up in that Discord. So please join us if you haven't. Also potentially looking to join something, but also maybe not, Blake Snell, because we've been waiting for an extremely long time. It felt like maybe, just maybe, there was some momentum going on Friday at the supposed bullpen session. Rumor had it that the Houston Astros were in attendance. Rumor had it all of a sudden on Friday that the Astros were in serious pursuit of Snell, according to Ken Rosenthal. That sounded a lot like what happened when they suddenly became in serious pursuit of Josh Hader and then quickly signed Josh Hader. But here we are on Monday. Snell is not an Astro. Robert, anything you can tell us about how Houston got involved and what their level of involvement is now as a new week begins?
Yeah, so with the Astros, like that interest is true. Like the Astros are interested, and I thought it was really noteworthy that Chandler Rome mentioned that Jim Crane has long been interested in Blake Snell, and he said that Crane had been long interested in two players, Josh Hader and Blake Snell, and they obviously signed Hader, and they obviously, they're interested in Snell. I don't know necessarily where that's going to end up, but like you, I like whenever Ken Rosenthal writes in serious pursuit or has lingo like that, I usually take that as a sign as like something's about to happen. And so I ended up checking, and I did not necessarily get the feeling that anything was close there. I think being in pursuit, I think that's I think that's fair. But I think it's just going to come down to the asking price. And I mean, you look at all these teams that are interested in Snell. I think the Angels, they like Snell, but they just have not gotten the green light. Or how do I want to phrase that? The Angels still are not at a point as of like my last check yesterday where they're comfortable with the Snell price. And I think the same can be said for a lot of these teams. And I think the Astros and a lot of these teams are just going to end up waiting out the market to see when that price eventually does come down and try to get a value. And I think you make a lot of these teams better, but trying to handicap a favorite at this point is a really dangerous game. I don't think we're anywhere near that point because that's just a way of looking wrong. But yeah, if anyone told you where they knew Snell was going, I think they'd be lying to you.
And I did say like 5 minutes ago that we would have the information at the end of this show. So you called me a liar, and that's just fine because I was, in fact, lying. But the Snell ask isn't coming down yet, it would seem. We are past the point of trying to even speculate about whether he'd be available for opening day or not. Opening day is in 10 days. So that fun little, oh, wow, is he even going to hold out so long? He misses the opener? Yeah, absolutely, because opening day is right around the corner, and he has yet to sign on to a roster. He's been obviously doing a throwing program and did a private session for some teams last week, it would seem. But I would not call him opening day ready at this juncture. Bob Nightingale, all of a sudden, over the weekend, makes the Giants the favorites to land Blake Snell after all this Houston momentum. But like you said, it's been remarkably dangerous to name a favorite at every step of the way. The Angels were certainly the favorites in the public sphere at some point. We're not saying they were or weren't. We're just saying in common parlance, the Angels were known as the favorites for a while. Houston felt like they had favored nation status on Friday, and now not so much. Is the base reality here is that Houston has about $20 million to spend annually before they end up over that additional luxury tax tier. Snell, while still interested in a short-term high AAV offer, $20 million is not a high enough AAV for him or really even close. So that's why we're at an impasse. And I guess that's why we're saying the Giants are the favorites, just because we're running out of favorites.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually had not seen that report about the 20 million mark. But if it's about like the not wanting to go over that tax, then I would understand that, because that 110% tax is like a legit thing that these teams have to be like aware of, because obviously clearly the Yankees are.
Yes.
And I mean, that's just, they implemented that tax as like a Steve Cohen tax, and yeah, that's just a tough one. But as far as like mentioning a favorite here with Snell, I don't necessarily think we're at the point where there is a favorite. And it just, you even mentioned the Giants, like how Nightingale ended up mentioning the Giants. Even a couple weeks ago, Farhan Zaidi was like, our offseason, from my vantage point, is pretty much over. And I mean, maybe the price ends up falling to a point where they get back involved in that. Who knows? Like, I think they have at least some level of interest in a guy like Michael Lorenzen. And I mean, clearly they need another starting pitcher, because I had one evaluator who has been watching the Giants, and he texted me. It was like, the Giants have 2.5 starters. I mean, they have Logan Webb, they have Kyle Harrison, and then they have Jordan Hicks, who is a converted reliever who has had an extensive injury history. And that's a scary one to rely on. Obviously, they're going to have more players that come back at the trade deadline or right around that point, and probably beforehand. But they've had some pretty tough injuries this spring. I mean, you have them, you have the Angels, you have the Astros. I mean, there's probably some of these other teams that are looking at it and saying, hey, can we get a value here? But they just haven't presented themselves. I don't think there's been an offer that's made them like hesitate. And it's a waiting game. And who ends up breaking first? Is it Boris or is it these teams? Clearly these teams are showing we're willing to be patient. And Boris, obviously, he's done short-term deals with Chapman, with Bellinger, and some of his free agents. Maybe these teams try to get him on a short-term deal for a higher AAV, but maybe that AAV at this point is just even too high for their likings.
Man, yeah.
This is tough. I mean, it legitimately just, it feels this offseason has just been insanely frustrating. And I think that is the toughest. It's one of the toughest off seasons I've ever had to cover, because it's just been so slow. You've always had to be on your phone trying to text people, trying to see if news is happening, and everyone is basically saying the same thing. No news to report. There's been no movement, and it's crazy. It is legitimately bizarre.
And the worst part about the slow offseason is, like you said, you do have to be grabbing your phone constantly, because in a fast-moving offseason, it's all happening. You can react. You know, the flow of information is so free. In a slow offseason, you just have to always be glued to your phone, texting people what is going on, why is nothing going on. And we're still stuck here. Jordan Montgomery's still available as well. And JR the Kid 777 asked us in our private all-star chat for the show what realm of asking price he's at. By the way, that's a guy who doesn't have a qualifying offer attached to him, so you would have thought he might be off the board first, and still is hanging out with Blake Snell, still got that $200 million ask, that big city aversion, reportedly wants a quote-unquote small market like the Cardinals. Everybody got their laughs out about that a couple weeks ago, but silence in that market. Some people are sort of ironically saying, wouldn't it be funny if he signed before Snell, since we're at least getting all this Snell gibberish, and we're getting nothing on Montgomery. Is his asking price coming down at all either? Because if Snell's isn't, I assume neither is Montgomery's.
No, and I thought it was noteworthy the other day when Heyman ended up writing that while Snell is seeking a short-term deal, that Montgomery is still seeking a longer-term deal. And if he's still seeking a longer-term deal, then this could end up being an even longer waiting game, because it just seems like nobody's been willing to give him that long-term security, at least at the money that he's been seeking. And it's a case of a lot of frustration. Clearly these players are probably getting antsy, getting frustrated, like wondering where exactly they're going to be. And it's just, these teams aren't budging. And I don't necessarily know the dollar amount that Montgomery is looking for. But I know if I was a team that was looking for a frontline starting pitcher, that Montgomery would be atop my list. And if you end up looking at his performance, he didn't break out until he ended up really leaving the Yankees, but he was awesome in St. Louis, ended up getting traded to the Rangers, and then he ended up being a huge part of their World Series run last year. Clearly he's proven that he can win and win on the big stage and perform really well. And it's just a case of no one's willing to give him that dollar amount. And it's just, I don't get it. And it feels like I'm saying that a lot on this show. And I know I'm not the only person in baseball who's saying these things, because I've gotten some pretty angry phone calls in the last few days of just how slow this market has been, and just when these teams are going to start waking up and start spending, because people are at this point are wondering, are these teams actually being serious about winning? And if you have all these high-end players and established veterans that are still unsigned as of March 18th, I think it's a perfectly valid question.
And once again, I do appreciate you taking my angry phone calls. At the bottom end of the available pitching market, theoretically, you've still got Mike Clevinger, you've still got Michael Lorenzen, you've got guys who can soak up innings. We know the Yankees are looking at Lorenzen in an effort to do just that, because they like their young pitching, and also, so do I. I like their young pitching. Luis Heel, Will Warren, but these are rookies, ostensibly, or guys with limited big league experience filling in for literally Garrett Cole. So Lorenzen could help there. Clevinger could help any team that needs innings. There was a bit of a bombshell that dropped over the weekend when it seemed like it was being reported that Clevinger is still seeking a 2-year deal. You were able to get some clarity on that, though, and I know you'd love to speak a little bit about Clevinger specifics here.
Yeah, Clevinger is not seeking a 2-year deal. I know Bob Nightingale ended up posting an edit on his story from the other day. And Clevinger is seeking a 1-year deal. And I don't think he hasn't given teams like what his ask is. And yeah, I don't know how that number ended up getting out there, but Clevinger is seeking a 1-year deal. I think the White Sox are a possibility there. I know there's some other teams that are poking around there. But as of yesterday afternoon, I can say that there was nothing close, and it's just there's teams that are also lingering on Clevinger that are trying to get a bargain, but it's just not at that point where the money's going to get to that point. And I think Clevenger ended up performing really well once he returned from the injury last year. And I think that's something that he's trying to show these teams. And he's still got an ERA for his career that's in the threes, and he's performed well. I think he deserves a 1-year deal for a raise that was more than what he ended up making last year. But these teams are just not willing to give him that dough, and it's just a giant waiting game. And also another part of this free agent market too, Adam, is the fact that you have Blake Snell, who was coming off of a Cy Young award, and then you have Michael Lorenzen, who are throwing for teams at this point. Like, what does Blake Snell need to show teams in a throwing session? I mean, maybe these teams are wondering if he's ready and can join a rotation from the get-go right after he signs. That I don't know. But this offseason has just been so unique, and I cannot recall a time where there's ever been an offseason like this, because it is truly just shocking.
Yeah, Snell's bullpen session should just have to be like 2 or 3 pitches long. As long as he shows up and he's not like 240 pounds, packing a heater, and like throwing 88, then you should be like, all right. I mean, yeah, that looks like Blake Snell. I've seen all I need to see. But you're right. It does say it all about the offseason that these pitchers who are very well known, who are coming off no hitters, have no hitters and Cy Youngs, have resorted to throwing bullpen sessions just to prove their health and worth and value. And look, some pitchers stuff waivers significantly from bullpen session to bullpen session. We were talking earlier in the Discord about Carlos Rodon bounce back season. And look, spring training, bullpen sessions are bullpen sessions. But 2 weeks ago, he was allowing 4 home runs and 3 stimulated innings against Yankees minor leaguers and sitting 92, 93. And today he threw 5 2/3 no-hit innings against the Phillies, sitting 95, 96. So you see Blake Snell once in a bullpen session away from the field, he might look iffy. Command might not be there, might not look big league ready. 2 weeks later, could be a totally different guy. So not only are you putting these pitchers through the ringer, but you might not even learn all that much from these side sessions.
No, I don't think you can learn much from them at all. Obviously, you can see like if they're healthy, how crisp their stuff is, and I mean a few different things. But like from a side throwing session, I don't think you're seeing that much. Like you can really see that much, or you can just see if their stuff is ready to immediately translate to major league action. That I don't know, but I'll tell you, it's just. As like going back to Rodon for a second here, I think he is such an underrated, crucial part of this Yankees season, especially with Garrett Cole out for the first month or two. If Carlos Rodon ends up bouncing back and is the pitcher that they ended up signing, or that they thought they signed last offseason, then I think this rotation can really hold together until Garrett Cole comes back. And then once Garrett Cole comes back and Rodon is pitching at that form, then you have a really, really, really good top 3 in that rotation. And I think it's an underrated key to the Yankee season. Maybe it might be underrated for Miami. Maybe it's not so underrated in Yankees land. I don't know. But I think that's something that's really bears watching. And also, one other thing that I've wanted to say, I've been dying to say this for like the last couple episodes, is Juan Soto underrated?
I think so. I keep saying, I keep yelling on obviously I do the Unhinged Yanks Go Yard podcast before this one. So on the Screaming podcast, I always talk about how I think people are underrating the fact that the Yankees didn't just go out and get a lefty or a lefty all-star or an all-star outfielder. Juan Soto is in a class of his own. And so when people reduce that trade to being like, oh, they sacrificed all their pitching depth to get Juan Soto, it's like, they sacrificed some of their upper-level pitching depth, some of which has already been traded to the White Sox, by the way. Drew Thorpe is already on his second org since that trade, in order to get a man who is shaping up to be a future Hall of Famer career trajectory, unlike what we have seen in recent Bronx Bombers history and Major League history. Juan Soto is a one of one. So Is he going to be enough to drag the offense back to relevance? You're going to need a Volpe bounce back, and he appears to be a different hitter this spring too, not selling out for power anymore. You're going to need Alex Verdugo to do something. You're going to need Stanton to show up and at least provide something. You're going to need Anthony Rizzo to look more like Anthony Rizzo than the guy who was concussed. You are certainly going to need a lot of off switches to turn back on, but Juan Soto is more than just a major cog in a Yankees team that needed to show improvement. He is singular. I think that's a good point.
Oh yeah, it's something that's been on my mind because it's like I feel like people are just underestimating the impact of Juan Soto. Like I remember when he was traded to the Padres, people instantly were talking about them being like the World Series favorites, and that would end up putting them over the hump. And obviously, it didn't go to plan in San Diego. Like that those teams they just underperformed, and obviously Bob Melvin is elsewhere now. But I think now that he's in New York in a very hitter-friendly ballpark, I think his numbers this season could be just absolutely bananas. And I thought it was a good move by Brian Cashman getting him. Obviously, they paid a pretty sizable haul, gave up a lot of their young pitching to get him. But that was a piece that signified that they were all in. And if it ends up getting him to the postseason, let me rephrase. If it gets into the World Series, then it was all worth it. A postseason berth isn't enough. Like this team feels very World Series or bust considering that move, especially with Soto entering free agency at the end of the year. But yeah, I'm a huge Juan Soto fan. I think he is very underrated, and yeah, that should not be forgotten, because if he's forgotten, then I have no idea what the hell is going on.
Well, it's funny because everybody usually just gasses up the Yankees, which is why everybody's so tired of hearing about the Yankees, because they're tired of hearing them get gassed up only for them to lose in the playoffs again. We don't know what's going to happen, but we do know that Juan Soto probably not getting enough credit for being Juan Soto on this roster this offseason. I totally agree with you. And for once, the Yankees aren't the ones who are really getting scorned for playing checkbook baseball. That is, in fact, the Los Angeles Dodgers this time around, who do go out and add Glasnow and extend him. Go out and add Ohtani for $700 million. $694 million of it deferred. Not just kidding. Almost, though. Pretty close. And Yoshinobu Yamamoto signs there, too. Somewhat uncertain as he's coming over from Japan. They don't care. They give him $350 million regardless. That's a hell of an offseason before you even add in the pieces at the margins like Kike Hernandez. And one guy who did not like it very much is Miles Mikolas of the Cardinals. The Dodgers and Padres start the regular season early Wednesday morning in Seoul, South Korea. But the Dodgers' first home game of the season is against those Cardinals. Mikolas probably not pitching on opening day, although Sonny Gray's injured. I actually don't know if the Cardinals have announced their opening day starter.
I'm pretty sure he's their opening day starter.
Yeah, probably is. That makes a lot of sense. Well, he's out there saying that the Cardinals are going to be sticking up for the underdogs because the Dodgers have insisted on playing checkbook baseball this offseason. That's not how we do it in St. Louis. I was surprised to hear this, especially given that the Cardinals aren't exactly one of those small markets. It's not Miles Mikolas, Oakland ace. It's the St. Louis Cardinals who've paid Nolan Arenado and have Goldschmidt and have paid people in the past pretty significant and hefty sums, but also teammates who are trying to get money. Are we really rallying around the Dodgers spend and nobody else should spend thing? That kind of weirds me out too.
Yeah, it was very weird seeing that. I'll tell you, I saw those quotes and I was like, oh, it's got to be one of those fake accounts tweeting a fake quote or something. All of a sudden I did my digging and it's like, oh shit, that actually happened. And it to me, it was just rubbing the wrong way. I thought that was not necessarily something that he should have said. That immediately put a target on their backs come opening day. And he ended up adding something at the end of like, I can't wait to like beat them, or he's phrased it stronger than that. I can't remember his exact phrasing, but it was just bizarre to me. That being said, I do think baseball getting a little bit of spice is not a bad thing, because I think it's cool seeing like some smack talk, I didn't want to swear twice in the same segment here, but yeah, I like it. I like the fact that there's some spice, that there's some trash talking, and that it's happening before opening day. I just thought he could have done it in a little bit of a better way. I am truthfully stunned, though, it didn't happen sooner. That some team didn't, or some player didn't just come out and rip the Dodgers for spending as much as they did. But my argument to that is, like, why isn't your team doing that? I mean, obviously not many teams can spend 1.2 or 1.3 billion, but like, challenge your owner to spend more money and make your team more competitive. Like, spending is not a bad thing. It should be a good thing. It should be celebrated, especially in offseason of the magnitude of the Dodgers. I know people are probably sick of all the talk about it, but like, we're talking a historic offseason. It's a really cool thing. and obviously got under the skin of a few people in baseball. So I mean that happens.
Good point too from obviously a burner. Like, is it the deferred money? Because it's the first time we've really seen that on such a monumental national level. Instead of just checkbook baseball, it's like rearranging the checkbook baseball. It's not just spending; it's spending in a different way than we've seen. And you and I are aligned on this. We talked about this when the Dodgers were making their splashes. All the pressure in the world is on them. They are certainly the favorites in that division. They're right up there with the Braves as the favorites in the National League. But if somebody beats them in the playoffs, that team is going to let them know. And if somebody wins a game off them in the playoffs, that is suddenly going to get very uncomfortable for a Los Angeles Dodgers team that has faced a lot of discomfort in recent years, albeit with a different, less deep cast of characters. My money is still on Philadelphia to turn up the boiler a little bit in a potential playoff matchup with the Dodgers. I do not think that Dodgers team wants to go to Philly.
No, I don't think any team wants to go to Philly because Philly, one, it's a really tough place to play. And two, you look at that team. I mean, they're stacked. They have great hitting. They have great pitching. And I mean, obviously the one thing you always got to watch at the Phillies is the bullpen. I mean, that cost them obviously last year a chance to get to the World Series. But I mean, they have more talent than most teams, probably 95% of teams. And that would be because they've proven they can beat the Braves. They've done it in back-to-back years, and they have the team that can beat anyone if they get hot at the right time. And that, to me, would be, if I was the Dodgers, that'd be the team I would watch for the most because they're capable of beating anyone, and they're capable of beating anyone at any given moment.
Yeah, I guess I forgot how frustrating that bullpen was last year. Well, at least Craig Kimbrell's in Baltimore now, so that's that.
There you go. By the way, I want to address one thing here. Andrew, you were asking pretty consistently about Tommy Pham and the Padres. I can say as of yesterday, the Padres remain interested in Tommy Pham, but as of yesterday afternoon, I was told that nothing was imminent. I don't know if anything has changed at this point, but I don't think it has. So I would be under the impression that it's not imminent and that Padres do have competition for Pham. I do know there's a few other teams that are interested in Tommy Pham. So there is competition. There's no guarantees. But I do know the Padres are interested. He's got a good relationship with AJ Preller. Maybe that ends up getting a deal across the finish line, but it has not reached that point yet. So there you go. So you don't have to unsubscribe now.
No, please stick around, and we appreciate the questions. One more question from the All-Star Chat, and if you want to join the All-Star Chat, just hit that join button, select your level, become a member of our Discord. We'd love to see you there. We also had a question from one of our loyal members, who's been there for a while, Brundo5, a Milwaukee guy, wanted to know if the Brewers were still looking for cheap pitching options entering the season, which is interesting because obviously they have no intention of surrendering the Central despite giving up Corbin Burns. So I toss that to you. Is Milwaukee among the teams that is still searching for cheap pitching options, but whatever that might mean, whether you believe Lorenzen and Clevenger are cheap or whether you're looking at a lower tier, a Noah Syndergaard type?
I think the Brewers are open to adding some, or like if someone ends up getting to a certain price point, I think like a Clevenger type would make sense for them. But I think it would have to be at a really, really, really low rate and team-friendly rate. I can't imagine it gets to that point for Clevenger, so I'd put it in the unlikely category, probably highly unlikely category, to be honest. But the Brewers, if there's one thing that I've learned about the Brewers, is that they're always open to getting out-getters. That's something that they've called pitchers for years, ever since I was on the beat covering the Brewers on a daily basis. Like, they call their pitchers out-getters. They love having as many options as possible, and especially with their rotation, there's some question marks there for sure. And you never know with Wade Miley, who is definitely toward like the end of his career here. But I wouldn't get your hopes up for an addition, but I could be wrong. And the Brewers, they've surprised me before, but this one would surprise me.
Yeah. Well, keep your eyes peeled, but yeah, we're perilously close to the season. Most teams are finalizing their opening day rosters. Blake Snell's out there throwing bullpen sessions, but we are pretty close to actually getting some live baseball action. So most teams are probably not going to make massively impactful moves. In other words, are up about 6 with 27 seconds left, and no team has ever blown that kind of lead before in a college basketball game. So we're perilously close to the regular season. Nothing major can happen except for a couple more things can obviously happen. Man, I was really excited to see my school play March Madness. Now I don't get to do that. That actually sucks.
Sorry, Adam.
It's okay. They blew. I mean, look, they choked. It's not like it got taken from them. They had it and then they threw it in a garbage can. So you can only blame themselves. And considering they're current college students, I'm not really going to get on here and scream at them because that's
no. I can't blame you. If there's one thing I'd blame though, it's probably Jacob for sleeping.
I blame Jacob as well. I do appreciate the comment. Here's the thing: I've been rooting for North Carolina basketball since I was a little kid. Then I went to a school where there's never been basketball before in any capacity, so it did not change my rooting interest in North Carolina basketball. My school has not made March Madness since 1986. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually care about that. And I did, and it was great. And I went to the game on Saturday, and they won. They beat Princeton, who's supposed to mop the floor with them, maybe win some March Madness games in real March Madness. They did that. You can't take that away from me. But now I do have to focus on North Carolina, who I do not think is going to get bounced by a 16 seed, but I have been wrong before. I think we're going to watch North Carolina play Caleb Love in the Elite Eight and probably lose. I think that's what's going to happen. But I think that'll be exciting for everybody. Wouldn't everybody enjoy that? Isn't that what they want? Don't you want to see Caleb Love and UNC face off for the right to go to the Final Four? We were talking, Robert and I, about I don't think we're going to do a show on Thursday. I think everybody probably wants to watch March Madness during the most exciting day of the basketball year. So stay tuned here. Turn your notifications on in the channel. We're going to try to figure out basically, we're going to be live Wednesday if the news merits it. Then we will definitely do a special live show. You will see us back here. We'll keep you updated in the Discord. But if it's more of the same status quo, we're going to take the rest of the week off because we don't want to do a bad show. And we definitely don't want to do a bad show during March freaking Madness, the first round, which is, again, the ultimate Thursday.
Oh, absolutely. I'm jacked. Honestly, I know nothing about college basketball, but yet I'm going to be watching and betting on it like I know everything about it, which, oh boy.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Pretty dangerous. But no, if the news happens before Thursday, then we'll have a show. But if there's not, we'll let everyone enjoy March Madness and do their things. But I'm absolutely stoked no matter what. And I know if we don't have a show on Thursday, then we'll have an action-packed show for you on Monday. Hopefully breaking down some news, but I'll try to have as much in the notebook as possible so I can give you guys some good info.
Exactly. Appreciate everybody joining us. We did what we could today. And again, we only want to bring you high quality television on your computer. That's what's called, that's what a podcast live stream is called, right? Television on your computer. I am 1,000 years old. Well, thank you for joining us. Again, Baseball Insider is the code. If you don't have DraftKings, sign up and join us. And help out the podcast by joining DraftKings. Join us in the Discord. We'd love to have you. Maybe a bracket challenge in the Discord. I see one developing in the general channel. I endorse. Hop in there. Maybe we could set that up. I would love to join. And yeah, no better time to try DraftKings than literal March Madness because you can bet on things that are not baseball. We're not saying, hey, sign up for DraftKings and be a total degenerate. Put $180 in there and blow it on spring training money lines. We're saying put it in there. Use your bonus bets in the best way possible, just probably maximizing your funds by trying some crazy stuff out during March Madness. I usually put a futures bet down every year. This year, again, it just seems like UConn is the play, which is, it kind of feels like Villanova 6 years ago, where you were like, I don't want to pick Villanova to win the title, but also they're the best team by miles. And then you get to the end of March Madness and they've won every game by 18. And you're like, oh, I guess that was smart but boring. I kind of feel the same way about UConn, but if you feel differently, if you like Kentucky's draw, which I kind of do, and you think maybe they sneak into the final, beat Houston, hey, more power to you. I'm probably going to lay some money on that. But now is the perfect time, again, to try DraftKings. I am Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. Robert Murray, thanks as always for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We'll see you guys maybe Thursday, probably not, but definitely Monday, though. We'll definitely see you on Monday. Adam Weinrib, I appreciate you, good sir. You're the man.
Appreciate you, too. You're also the man. We will 100% be back here on Monday. But again, if an emergency pod is necessary, stay tuned to the channel. check us out, put your notifications on, and we'll also ping you in the Discord to make sure you don't miss it. Until our next show, I'm Adam Weinrib for Robert Murray. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.